It is the odd couple, Rob Parker, Kelvin Washington, hanging out right now with Jeff Howe, who is the Athletic National NFL insider and who wrote the article, the conversation we were just having about Bill Belichick right there, wanting to coach again. Jeff, happy holidays to you. Thank you for joining the show.
That's right. And Jeff,
thanks for having me.
No doubt. So you said that you had talked to a unnamed executive, and his quote was something like, if Belichick wanted to coach again, he almost, which is a big word there, almost had to take the UNC job because NFL teams weren't interested. You mean to tell me that no one would hire Bill Belichick with all the bad coaching going on in the NFL?
Well, I mean, it's easy to look at it from that way, but I'm telling you, it goes a lot deeper than just Bill showing up to an interview room and saying, "Hey, yeah, I was the king of the sport for 18 years." I mean, yeah, he's won 6 Super Bowls. His resume is unparalleled, and there's nobody that can sit here and stack up past credentials. But it's a lot more than what Belichick's done in the past, and at this point, you know, objectively, that past is a generation away. I mean, he hasn't won a playoff game since 2018, since his last Super Bowl. So the way things ended with the Patriots turned off a lot of people around the league. And there's a lot of, you know, you mentioned the one executive that was quoted in there. I mean, I spoke to over 15 sources around the league for this story, and this was I'll also back it up. I mean, based off my reporting from last January, when Belichick, I can't remember if it's January or February, sorry, but like basically when all the jobs got filled last year, I didn't think Belichick was going to get another NFL job. And I reached out over the last week to obviously at least 15 people trying to see if anything had changed. Is the landscape any different? Because there was this massive assumption that once the hiring cycle came to be, that Belichick was going to be at the top of, or near the top of a lot of lists, and knowing how many vacancies there tend to be, you would think the odds would be in his favor. And it's just, there's too many people who are too skeptical of his ability to run a program. And not just that, let's say he proves everybody wrong. Let's say he got a job next month. This is obviously a massive hypothetical because it's not going to happen at this point. Let's say he got a job next month, and he proved every single word in that article to be wrong. He proved right away that he could take a team and turn them into an immediate contender. You know, there's a lot of ifs, and even still, the shelf life is for like 3 years. So, like, teams, I know there's a rush to win now. There's an urgency to win now. There's far too many coaches who get fired after 2 or 3 years. So that shelf life doesn't necessarily exist for any candidate. But it's hard to hire somebody right now saying, even if this is the best case scenario, we're talking 3 years.
All right. So, Jeff, my moles that I talked to in the NFL told me that he was indeed offered the Atlanta Falcons job, and that he sat on it for 3 or 4 days and had like a issue with the power struggle and who's going to do this and who's going to be that, and that's the reason why they pulled it back, but that he was offered that job. Did you get any reporting on that he was offered the Falcons job?
No. To the best of my knowledge, going back to last year, he was never offered the job. And this was he had the 2 interviews with the Falcons, but that was a fact-finding mission for both parties. It was for Belichick to see if he could deal with the power structure, to see if he could work with Rich McKay, because those two have had a long-running beef. And it was also the Falcons. They wanted to hear what Belichick had to say. And I'm telling, I can.
So are the Falcons in good hands now? They're good, the Falcons? You know what? I hear you, and I understand people have issues, and I'm not a Bill Belichick guy, okay? The guy cheated. I have an issue with the Patriots and all that went on, and eventually one day somebody will come clean and tell us all the bad stuff that went on during that run and all that. So I'm not a Belichick guy. But the idea that if this guy's available and wants to coach, that they would rather take a flyer on some of these Nathaniel Hackett's and some of these other bad coaches that I've seen in the NFL. I'm shocked at how bad some of these coaches are and the opportunities that they get, and you wouldn't take a look at a Bill Belichick. I find that to be hard to believe.
I get it. Look, I get it. And I can balance you out. I mean, I grew up in the Boston area. I covered the Patriots from 2009 to 2021 before I took over the national job. Mm-hmm. And I still live right near Gillette Stadium. So I drove past it today.
Okay.
So I'm very well versed in Belichick and the accomplishments, and I have been accused by Patriots fans for a long time of being too rosy with Belichick. So I'm not. And now today, of course, everybody's telling me I wrote a hit piece on Belichick in New England. So
right. I get it. I get it. Yeah.
It's always, you guys know, it's always one way or the other. It's however anybody wants to interpret this. And I'm telling you, I never go into an article with a slant. I never have an agenda. I never have an axe to grind. I was just asking the questions. And whether I agree with them or not, whether I think Belichick is one of the best, it's crazy. I'm not going to sit here and say there are 32 human beings on the planet who are better head coaches than Bill Belichick
I get
now.
that. Right.
I'm not going to try to feed you guys that and tell you like it's filet mignon. I'm not going to do that. But what I can do, and what I tried to do with the article today, again, speaking to a whole bunch of people, is just tell you what the league felt about him. Because I wanted to know, why is he pulling himself out of the chance to get an NFL job a month before the hiring cycle is truly going to get underway? And it's because he saw the writing on the wall. And if I can find all this stuff out, believe me, he spent the last few months trying to put out feelers as well, trying to figure out what are his chances of getting back into the NFL, because I promise you, getting those last 15 wins to pass Don Shula meant a whole lot to him. So to bow out the way that he did, or I shouldn't say to bow out, that's not fair to him, to basically say, I'm taking the UNC job before the NFL hiring cycle opens up, I think that validates everything that I tried to write today.
Can I get one other thing? I'm sorry, Kevin, one other question. The idea that his son's going to take over the nepotism part, was that enough to also sway him, to set his son up, put him in a position? Do you feel that played a part at all?
I think there's a part of him that absolutely wants to continue to brighten the spotlight around Steve, no question about it. But from what I understand, Steve has not set it up to be, the absolute successor based on the way the contract is written. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to try to predict the future.
Right.
I mean, if it goes swimmingly for the next 3 to 5 years, or the balance of that contract, however the two sides decide they want to continue working together, and it's a natural succession plan to have Steve take over, sure, it could absolutely happen. But to the best of my knowledge, from what I can tell you right now at this moment, there is absolutely nothing that says Steve is guaranteed to be the next guy.
Jeff Howe, the Athletic National NFL Insider for The Athletic. Let me get you out of here on this one. For me, I just, going through your article there, I just still more interested. Tell me a little bit more about, they were saying how some executives saying that what he was able to accomplish with the Patriots was a unicorn. Some other times you're mentioning that they were saying, he had burned so many bridges. Can you give an example or two of how those bridges were possibly burned with NFL teams?
Yeah, I mean, we can Rich McKay for one. That's mutual animosity that the two have had for one another. It goes back to competition committee arguments, whatever. Like certain trying to, I'm trying to think of the right, like one up one another or what have you. Just dumb stuff that just sort of builds up over the years. Dumb stuff might not even be a fair way to characterize it, but just, the amount of times that those guys have been in the rooms arguing about rules over the, last couple decades or whatever it's been, they just they don't get along. Like, that's going to happen. Like, Bill Belichick rubs people the wrong way in certain capacities, and it's not everybody. And when you are the most successful person to ever do your job, and I didn't even mean for it to sound as corny as it just did, but for him to be as successful as he's been, he's got a right to have some arrogance to him. And, right. Part of that, maybe it's something corny like skipping out on a coach's picture. But like it's way more than that. I mean, it's just being in league circles, not always being the rosiest person. Like, connections are important for any industry.
Yeah, well, we're going to see how that plays out with being in people's living rooms trying to get their 17-year-old kid. We'll see how that works.
And I want you to chase another story that 91-year-old Hubie Brown is leaving ESPN to go to North Carolina to coach basketball. Okay, check on that for me.
Well, you already done put Bill Belichick. You said he was a pork chop away from the graveyard, and I don't know what you're gonna say about Hubie Brown.
All right.
My goodness. Hey, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, man, Jeff. Thank you, and good luck with everything. Happy holidays.
Of course. Happy holidays. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good
Yep.
night.
Appreciate
No
it.
problem, man. 91 Hubie Brown. What the heck would you say for him? He a cough away from the grave?
I know, right?